Hey guys, putting together a quick constructional video here. Anybody who wants to get started, building your drone model kit. Um, I want to do a better version of this video in the future. I'm just running out the door right now for a week, but I know you guys are ready to get going, so I'm making enough of a video that you can really get started. So here we go. The first thing with any model kit, obviously, is clean your parts. Wash them, soapy water, not too hot. Alcohol, wax and grease remover, obviously is best, but generally these parts aren't cast with a release agent, so you don't really need the wax and grease remover. But if you got it, you can't be too safe. You'll kick yourself later if you don't wash them and you get inhibition in the paint. So, generally speaking about this kit, it's parted out so that you can build it in sections and then assemble those sections at the end for the most part, and you won't really have to do any seam line filling in the final assembly. So you'll paint sub-assemblies and just glue them together, and you don't have to worry because they're cut at a natural break line. So let's see. Obviously, dry fitting things first before you glue. As general kit tips. All right. Things to assemble first. Obviously, the first step is to actually clean any flash that you have. You know, if you've got an edge that's got some slight offset, just clean that up with a block first. Now the guns come in two halves. That is so that you can insert your brass pins. This one's painted, but there's clearance to insert these pins. And this top pin doubles as a gun barrel. So it'll stick out the end just a little bit, the brass side, so it's easier to see. And you've got 8 of these, and then you'll also have 4 smaller ones. And these smaller ones should sleeve right in there, and you'll bring it pretty close in to get that double, to get that step. Yeah, get that slight step. So then when you paint it, you've got this sort of stepped barrel, and you can chuck this up in a drill to get that bevel on the end of the brass rod. You know, you just put this end in the chuck, spin it, run a sanding block across the edge, make your little homemade lathe. What's next? Alright, so these gun halves, they don't have pins, but you can just put them together, put them on a nice flat surface, and glue that. Make sure it's lined up, obviously. Glue that to get your gun. And in the end, you might have to drill with a 1/4 inch or a slightly oversized drill bit, just to make sure that you've got clearance. I think it's good on the gun side, but then you've got matching holes in your turret arm here. So these guys, because the resin kind of shrinks, you might have to drill that out to a 1/4 inch just to make sure that your guns will slide in and out the way they should. So this is a finished gun. After you glue it, you just fill this top seam line and the bottom seam line, and just a quick bit of sanding to clean that up. There's a couple, it's terrible light, but there'll be a couple of seam lines on the inside here that you can or cannot fill, depending on what you want to do, how far you want to take it. Because it's black, and it's an inside area. It works pretty well even if you don't fill it. Alright, so then you'll insert your gun barrel into these finished guns, like so. I'll do it with the right end out. And it just barely sticks out. It doesn't really stick out past the thing, but check the reference images and you'll see it's not that important. But all right, now the turrets. These turret arms, they've got some reinforcing on the inside there, and these plates just go right on there, and they key in. So you've got a nice, pretty flush edge. There is just a slight bit of overset, just a slight lip right there, which, if you want, you can block sand that down to make it nice and look like it's one piece. And then again, it'll be optional to fill that edge, to fill that seam line if you want or not. There is a color break there on the actual drone, so this outside will be white and the inside is all black, and this lip is black as well. So just depends how far you want to take it. Now, assembling these guys, you've got your plate. You got 4 of these little guys per side. Is like the base for the bracket arms. Now these bracket arms go together just like this. Of course, it won't focus. Just like that. So your that little toe in the back butts up right against the piece there, and if you really want, you can fill this little seam right there to make it look like that's all one piece, into there. But I don't know, I didn't do it on mine. And you pretty much just glue that as it is. I mean, it just sits together like that, and glue it there. And then 4 of these little guys per. Now again, there's no positive lineup, but you just center that between there, and then you center front to back as well on this. So not there, right about there. And you just glue this guy down, so you'll have 4 per, and when you're done, it'll look like this. Now, I can kick this light on a little bit higher. So, 4 arms per plate, and then this piece sits on top. The rounded edge, you've got one edge of this is rounded, one is squared off. So the squared off edge goes down. Just obviously just one per arm. Okay, so this one's already in place. Just like that. Glue it down. So it looks like this. And then when you stick this on here, you square it to the to how the turret is, you know. So you've got, so it lines up like this. But this whole assembly then is made to sit into this groove here. So that lets you position it how you like. You can tow it in, tow it out, and obviously you could put it backwards if you like. You do it in just about any position, and then you'll glue it the way you like it. So or you can just do them square. Now, on the face of this guy, first things are you will drill out the eye here. So I like to use a step drill. At least to start, you'll drill out the eye. If you're planning on lighting this, you'll drill out just the inside circle here. For this the scanner eye, I call it. You can hog out this power core section, this little octagon. In the future, I hope to release a power core for this, which will be an add-on to this kit, and you'll have to do a little bit of grinding from the inside to make this wall thickness 100%, you know, uniform. But it should be something that you could retrofit to a finished kit if you wanted to from the inside. So if you plan on doing that, probably zip this out. If you don't care, leave it on. Structural integrity, whatever. Now, so you'll zip out those guys. You don't have to do a great job on the eye. You know, it doesn't have to be, just has to be clearance, you know, so that when you put the eye gimbal in, it's got room to move in the back there. And this is just for lighting, so you'll zip that out if you want to put a red light behind that. Real quick sub-assemblies for the eye are these parts here. Oop, it's not setting. These guys. And the way they go together, this is your housing. So that's your outermost section that sits in like this. Sets inset, and the tabs, oh, it's a tight fit. The tabs rest on the surface here, so you just center that tab between these little grills. And that's like a last step, gluing that eye in. So these little guys, you can see on the inside have little divots, and that's how these fit together. I think I will do the inside one first. So here's your inside eye, and this one's got a divot. So we just snap that in, then you've got some rotation there, and then put this in. You can do this from the back if you're doing this once these are painted, which I would recommend to paint them first, so that if you scrape the paint assembling them, it's not the end of the world, because it'll all be behind, of course. Might take a try or two to get everything assembled without falling back apart, because these are just pressure fit. Okay, well, since the clearances are so tight on here, you might have to do just a little bit of finagling to make sure that both axes work the way they should. But basically, this gimbal then will let you position the eye in just about any position you like. And however you want to position it, you just glue it. So let's say we're going to have him look in and down. And the way this glues in is so that the first axis, this top and bottom, because this has to glue in at an angle to the eye, so you make sure that first axis is vertical instead of, you know, the other way around. Well, fuck. Either way works. I guess didn't cross my mind that these are actually 45 degrees. But there you go. You learn something every day. Now, these are your housing covers for the eye. So you'll trim them, and you can just use the scissors just to this outside edge. You need to keep this little shoulder here, this first little shoulder, but trim it just past that so that you can insert this from the inside into this face housing. So you'll just have that little domed circle, and you just push it in, and when it's inserted, it looks like this. Now generally, for this, you know, kind of making it up as I go. So you paint the inside first. If you're really fancy, you'll probably paint the... Let me pop these guys out. You could paint just this lower section silver or chrome, and black on this section, but it's hard to see inside there once it's all assembled. So however far you want to take it, it's one of those situations. So once you've got this, paint the inside black, you got your dome piece on there. Take the blue off of the inside. I wouldn't take it off at the outside for the time being. You'll glue your lens in place and paint this black. Assemble these two pieces. Again, these line up with these. And fill this seam on the outside. You can fill that. And then paint the outside black. And then take your outside covering off of this plastic, and it'll be nice and brand new looking. And you don't have to deal with that fine masking of a perfect circle on top of a clear piece. It's taken care of. For the rest of the face, you've got this face plate, which may or may not need a little bit of coaxing around the edges, just because resin shrinks at different rates and you never know. but it just sets in there. And the outside edge here is one of those seams that you can fill or not fill, depending on if you think it needs it. It's all black, so it's really up to you. It should fit well enough that it doesn't look strange to have that seam there. This little piece, this little guy, just goes right in there, and that seam does not get filled. That seam is supposed to be there. So now for this eye scanner piece, you have a piece of brass screening, which is just an optional. This would go on the inside, so you wouldn't really have access from here. But one of the first steps on the back side is just to zip out this whole circle. I would leave some of this step, but you can zip out everything, or maybe a half an inch in, just have a big old hole on the back. And that's clearance for the main thruster and also your access to be able to do anything you want if you're lighting this or from the face side. So you've got your little spider lens face here, and once you trim that up, that'll set just inside of this dome. And then you've got a small ring, which this is one of those pieces that you will probably chrome first or silver first. For doing chrome, I do a all-clad black gloss base with Spazstics Mirror Chrome as the chrome coat, but whatever chrome you like, or you could just paint it silver, and then that just glues in right on top, inset on here. Now if you've zipped out that little hole in the back, this brass piece you can glue in from the inside to create that fine hole pattern that's just barely visible through the... Oh, that's not going to come out now. This little circular piece on the back of this face, you'll also want to have that taken out as well. Which I neglected to do here, so my little piece is stuck in there for the time being. Alright, for the door, you got your door here. You've got a little hinge piece, call it a hinge puck. Pull that pin out. So now you got this piece with a little hole in it. Take this, sand this just to a good round profile from the side. You've got a little bit of gate action going on. Just make it round. You can see how it should be. And that's just to get good clearance for when it opens. If it opens, if you want yours to open, it doesn't need to by any means. But you got a hole there, you got your holes here, you'll line them up, and you can stick your pin back through. You may need to drill, yes, that looks like it. You'll probably have to drill this to 3/30 seconds. I think it's 3/30 seconds, or at least a 1/16. Just go straight through. Use a drill, not your fingers. But that's how that assembles, essentially. You just stick the pin through both, and it being glued in place will hold it all together. You don't have to worry about that pin falling out because it's trapped. So, just pretend there's a pin in here, and these are assembled already. But your door goes in. You want to make sure that you've got a nice even reveal around the door. So I would check this before you glue your face frame in even. In this case, I have to take just a little tiny bit around here because my face frame looks like it's squished just a little bit down. But, or you could take it away from the door, which, you know, will be barely noticeable. But your little puck, those pieces will go in as one unit, and you'll glue it as an assembly. You glue the puck down at least, and then the... Alright, continuing. Now, you'll have your door installed. Again, this is one of those assemblies that can be painted first, the door and the puck. I would paint them before you put the pin in, and then that would be a last step, would be to install that into the opening. Now you've also got on the front these little antenna holes. So I would drill these out to a 1/16 or so, and you'll just insert these little brass rods that come with your kit. Stick out is totally up to you. Like, you know, it's not it's not ideal to have these thin wires sticking way off. So, you know, an inch and a half is a good amount to have them stick out. Just make sure they're parallel. Make sure they're parallel side to side, and you glue them, and it'll be a little bit forgiving. You can glue it, and then if you see that you haven't glued it, you know, got it like 95% there, you can just bend it just slightly in the right direction, and that won't be noticeable. It'll look like you meant to do it. And then the last step will be take a little bit of filler, epoxy sculpt, Bondo, whatever you got, and just create a cone shape around the pin that you've got in there, just to blend it into the body. There should be a cone, but as far as creating a drill spot and everything, it's just a lot easier if you just fill that little section as the last step. Now, on the back side, for one thing, you've got your thruster. So the thruster, you just glue, you just make sure it's lined up, tack it, double check you did a good job, glue it, fill the outside seam, fill the inside seam up to where the fan blades start, and you could use epoxy or something to to continue filling that seam in the clear portion, but you know, it's not a very visible section when the thing is assembled, so it's more to just let the light escape. And then you've got your cone piece, which will glue into the center of that once that assembly is done. Just clean up this hole, clean up the mating surface, and you just glue that cone into there. You can pre-paint this cone because that gluing surface is hidden, and hopefully it'll do a little better job filling the seam than I did here. Really, this was a pretty rushed assembly, but so that's your that's your thruster. You'll zip this out, and the thruster will just sit in there. Of course, it's not zipped out, so I can't. Clearance isn't perfect. But on that little hinge, you'll be able to pivot this in, you know, up or down. And if you want to pivot it so far down that you start seeing this gap across the top, first double check that the amount of gap that you're seeing won't be covered by the trim. You've got a little trim piece here that's a last step that adds a little bit of thickness on the back. But if not, just fill that little section. Just add in the center of this, just add a little bit of material and sand it to make it flush, and you'll be good. Other things on the back, let's start on the bottom. You got these two little holes which you'll drill through, and those are your locations for the TET antenna. So you just stick the pins in, and that'll be where that goes. You just make sure that you're making it parallel from side to side with the rest of the ship from the front. Come on. It'll look like that. All right. Last things on the back, you'll drill out these. If you're planning on lighting it, you'll drill out just the innermost circle on there. Do not drill out these. You'll drill out these. You've got your clear engines. You'll just paint the top portions of those, and those insert right in there. You'll paint your housings, your engine surrounds, silver, and that's the last step. They just insert right in there as far as they go. I'll actually do that in order so you can see. There you go. That's how those go. And then you've got your fuel cell end cap here. That just glues in like that. And then you've got his little friend, what I call the shoot me hole. And that one goes on this side. Just like that. You can paint those two first as well. on the side here, you got your allowances for these rear-facing antennas. And you'll just stick them in, glue them. You can shorten them a little bit if you like, but that's about right. Glue those guys in. Let's get these guys out. You've also got these rings, which should glue in, mirroring whatever position you glue this in. So just like that. So if you glue it like that, you move that in, glue it like that. Basically lining up each one of these tabs to one of these brackets. And you can see how the guns, whoa. See how the guns will insert into here. It's just last things that I'm remembering as I'm looking at these parts. You've got a little ball for your eye. So once your eye's all painted up and you're ready to go, you just stick that ball in there. Make sure it goes to the front. And that's your eye. On the front of these, that little hole, and you've got these clear lenses. They're pretty concentric, so you just glue it on like that. Finish the outer edge of that silver. Ooh, that's dirty. Just to create the frame for it, and the lens effect makes that hole the correct size. So that's how that works. And that's another point you could light if you really wanted to, but then you got to deal with wires coming from the arms end of the body, and could be hidden, but just depends how far you want to go. Now, that is the assembly. The last things you're going to do when everything else is done are to put the engine core in. So engine's one of the last things. You might hot glue these pins. Something reversible is ideal in case you ever need to get back in to the body for maintenance or whatever you're doing. And all of these pieces, you've got those two and this. These are the back of your drone. So you'll paint those silver. And after your, actually you could do this whenever you want because it's not in the way, but this is your door. So you'll glue that just like that. And there is supposed to be the seam line here, so that should stay because it's also a color break. So the main body of the drone is white. This will be silver. This will be silver. And it'll all blend pretty nice. But because this hole gets closed off slightly by these pieces, is why you want to glue these on last. So once that engine core is in there, you sort of seal it in by gluing these rear pieces down. And then of course you've got the bottom. You've got your little bottom cap for your drone. And there it is. If you've got any questions, just message me. You all know me on the RPF, Logan74K. Thanks for being patient, watching this video, and we'll see you later.